Amen. All right, y'all can have a seat. My name is Trish. If I have not met you, I am the high school girls pastor, and tonight I get to share with you guys, and we're gonna keep working through our series on friendship. Last week you guys heard from Joanna, and we decided, I don't remember if she told you guys this, but we decided basically to do a friendship series because we have a student leadership team. It's a group of students that we meet with every other week. And last spring, we asked them what they would like to hear us talk about. And so one of the things that they said, we would love for you guys to do a friendship series. And they said, y'all have never done that, and so we'd love for you to do it. And we were like, oh, it seems so, friendships, it seems so simple. It's something we all have from the time, I was thinking today, I was like, goodness, from the time like you're like 4 or 5, you start making friends. And then even like my grandma in the nursing home has friends. And so you have friends, like different friends, maybe different seasons, but we all have friends at different points in our life. And so friendship, it's always there. It's always gonna be there. And we're kind of always facing it. So I talk with lots and lots and lots of girls about friendships. And we walk through a lot of things with friendships. So I'm super excited tonight just to kind of take a look at what God's word says about friendships. But as we get started, I have a question for you guys. I want you to think back to when you were, maybe it was like 3, 4, 5, I don't know, maybe it was elementary age. But I would like for you to raise your hand if you were that kid that had an imaginary friend. If you were the kid that you are brave enough to be like, yeah, I had an imaginary friend, that was me. Okay, some of you guys had imaginary friends. Let me ask you this, did you like go as far as like name your imaginary friends? Yes, oh, they had like names, they were like really your friend. Awesome, yes, okay. So growing up, some of you guys maybe did not have imaginary friends, but for those of you that did, that is awesome. I didn't necessarily have one imaginary friend, but I was the oldest in my family, so I was bossy just by nature because the oldest, is usually the bossy one. And so what I would do is I would just line all of my dolls and all of my stuffed animals up in my room, and I would basically just teach them. I was the teacher, and they were all my students, and I was just bossy, okay? And so I would imagine that I had a classroom and that I was the teacher and I was in charge, and I would just for hours teach. My brother and I, we grew up in a neighborhood where most of our neighbors were older, and so we didn't have a lot of kids to play with in our neighborhood. So again, I spent my time teaching all of my stuffed animals and dolls. My brother, on the other hand, he loves sports. He always has. He's a high school football coach. And so my brother, he used to, when we were growing up, he had imaginary friends that he would talk to, and they would go on vacation with us when he was like really little. But then as he got older, he would just have imaginary baseball games in our front yard. And so imaginary baseball games complete with the bases, complete with my brother putting on his baseball helmet, and he would stand at home plate and he would get ready. He was like batting. And so you can imagine our neighbors are looking out their front door or their kitchen window, and they're seeing my brother by himself in our front yard, all bases, and my brother is like playing a game, and he's like trash talking the other team that's not out there. They're just imaginary. He is like this, and he's trash talking, and so sometimes he would swing and he would hit a home run and run the bases and be cheering and giving his imaginary teammates high fives. And then sometimes, as you know, if you're playing baseball, he was this, and I guess the pitcher got tired, threw a bad pitch, and would apparently hit my brother. And so what do? Playing your imaginary baseball game, you charge the mound, right? And so my brother would slam his baseball bat down, he would throw off his helmet, and he would charge the mound at the imaginary pitcher. And it did not stop there, because what do? You trash talk them, I guess, I don't know, I've never done this, and then you start throwing punches, right? And so you can imagine my brother would immediately start punching this imaginary pitcher. Basically, he's punching the air, okay? And then it wouldn't stop there, because my brother doesn't do anything. You're gonna hear another story about him later tonight. He doesn't do anything halfway. He goes all out in what he's doing. He's just that person. And so immediately, he's like punching this poor imaginary pitcher on the other team. I know, and then the fight would turn into he would grab him, I'm guessing maybe like around the neck. I don't really know. I haven't been in a fight, but he would grab him around the neck and he would take him down to the ground and he would be wrestling on the ground just punching the air. Okay, so you can imagine we were like quickly labeled as that family, the weird kid that played the baseball game and had fake fights in the front yard. And so basically, I tell you that story, number one, to let you in on the fact that, yes, we were the weird family of the neighborhood, but also to tell you that and show you that we crave community. If we do not have community, if we do not have friends around us, we will do whatever we can to entertain ourselves and to make ourselves have people around us, even if it's to the point where we need to imagine it, okay? We are wired for community. We're wired for community. Joanna talked about this a little bit last week, but as we talk about how we go back all the way back to Genesis, okay? Where the Bible starts, where creation starts. And God created, what God create? Who's the person he created first? Adam, okay? God created Adam, and not much later, God created another person. He created Eve, okay? Because he did not want Adam to be alone. He said, I need you to have somebody else. Okay, so immediately there's two people, and then he told them to go and, anybody know? Starts with M. Go and multiply. Somebody else said it, okay? Basically, go have kids, okay? He told them to do that because we are making more people, okay? So very quickly, we added more people to the earth, okay? And before you knew it, it was a community of people. So we are, from the very first person on earth, we are made to have, we're wired to have community. We see, fast forward a little bit till we have Jesus here on earth. Jesus had community. Jesus hung out with his 12, okay? There are times we see Jesus alone, but most of the time, he was with a crowd of people. He also had his 12 friends that he spent time with, he walked around with, he invested in them. Those were his people, okay? So we are created, we're wired for community. Isolation for us as human beings is not good. Being by ourselves is usually not good. Sometimes it's even dangerous. A form of punishment used to be when someone would commit a pretty big crime, they thought that if you were a prisoner that was dangerous to other people, they would put you in isolation. They would put you in a cell about the size of probably some of y'all's closets at home, and you would have no human interaction, okay? You would not see people. You would be in a prison cell by yourself. You would get your food through like a little mail slot, so you wouldn't even see people to get your food. You would get your food through that, and it said, bless you, goodness gracious. It said that usually it would take people about 7 days, and after about 7 days of no human interaction, you know what happened to those prisoners that were in isolation? They were in the very corner of their cell. They were squatted down like this in the fetal position, and they were rocking back and forth, sometimes making noises, talking to themselves, because isolation is not a good thing. It makes us almost go crazy. So we are created, we're wired to be around people. Proverbs 18, verse 1. Proverbs 18:1 says, whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. And Proverbs talks a lot about friendship and about community and about people. If you want to look into that, you guys actually all will be, if you're in D group, you'll be walking through Proverbs later. But Proverbs talks a lot about, hey, it's not good for us to be alone, because when we're alone, when we're isolated, when we're by ourselves, we don't make sound decisions. We need other people to talk through it. Especially, I know girls, we always, when we have a decision to make, we go to like 8 people before we make a decision, right? Because we're trying to get other people's opinion on that. But it's not good for us to make decisions by ourselves. Some of our worst decisions are made in isolation. So our very worst decisions are made in isolation. In Hebrews, it talks about how we should not give up meeting together, okay? It says don't give up meeting together like some people are in the habit of doing. It tells us keep meeting together, keep being together. God calls us to be in community. Sports championships, okay? Some of y'all have been on sports championship football teams. Championships are not won by one person. There is usually 1 or 2 stars on the team, but it's not won by just that one person. It's won by a team of people that have put time and effort into practicing together to get better as a team, and that's how they win championships. Okay, a battle is not won by one warrior. A battle is won by a team of men and women that train together, and they spend hours and hours training together, that when they get on the battlefield, they work together and they win as a fleet of people together that are working together. So we are wired for community. We're wired for community. So if we know that, we know God designed us for community. We know we are meant to not be alone. It's like, okay, yeah, we get it. God designed us for friendship, which is awesome. But what do we do with that? Okay, what do we do with that? Tonight we're going to talk about a couple of things where just it's kind of going, we're going, what does God's word say about that? So first thing is who determines where? Okay, the who determines where. And I told our junior high students when I was talking to them, I said, that sounds like a Dr. Seuss book where it's like who determines where. It's like, what does that mean? But what this is it who we walk with, our people that we hang out with, who we hang out with determines where we're going. Okay, who we hang out with determines where we're going. I want you to do this. I want you, if you have something to write on, write it down. If not, grab your phone, put it in your notes. I want you to jot down the 5 people in your life that you spend the most time with. Not your family. Can't be your family, okay? But the 5 people you spend the most time with. Who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? Ready? Go. Jot it down. Or get it in your brain. 5 people. Okay, so you should be writing down the 5 people you spend the most time with. 5 people you spend the most time with. Okay, I want you to look at those 5 names, or think of those 5 names if you didn't write it down. Okay, everybody got their 5 names that they spend their most time with. Okay, there's a guy named Jim Rohn. He studies people, okay, he does all these studies on people, and Jim Rohn has a quote, and he said, we are the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So I want you to look at those 5 people. We are the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. As you look at that list of the 5 people you spend the most time with, I want you to think about those people. I want you to think about their character. I want you to think about the decisions they make. I want you to think about how they treat their parents, how they treat other friends, how they treat their teachers at school. Okay, I want you to think about what they do on a Friday and Saturday night. We are the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. What happens is we start spending time with people, okay? And the people we start spending time with, we become like those people that we are around. A lot of times we don't even realize we become like them. I don't know if you've ever seen a friend group at school that starts to all spend time together, okay? They kind of all start to spend time together. They all start to kind of talk alike. They all start to do the same things. They kind of start having the same interests. They all start to act alike, okay? They start having the same reactions, same mannerisms. They kind of laugh at the same things. And sometimes, maybe this happens with girls, maybe it happens with boys too, I don't know, but they even start to dress alike, okay? And they start to almost look alike. It's because we become like the people we spend time with. You're all thinking of a group, right? Aren't you? Okay, y'all listen up. So we become like the people that we're spending time with. A lot of y'all know this, but my job before I came to fellowship was I was a camp director. And so one of my roles, I did that for 8 years, and one of my roles as a full-time camp director was I hired 350 college students to work with me in the summer. So those of y'all that have been to, like if you go to Brook Hill or Pine Cove or Kanakuk, or y'all kind of have your camps that you go to, okay, that was my role, was I was a camp director, and I was in charge of all those counselors that are the people that are in the cabin with you guys, okay, when y'all go to camp. And so one of my favorite things to watch, one of my very favorite things to watch every summer, at the beginning of the summer, was we would have 350 college students come in, and they were fun. I mean, college students that choose to work at camp are just super fun. And so some of them are crazy, and they just don't care what other people think. And so some of them would come in, a couple of them usually would come in, and they'd be wearing a fanny pack. And by the end of the week, I would look around, and I'd see about 10 fanny packs. And then by the end of like 2 weeks, all 350 camp staff, all my college kids would be wearing fanny packs. They would rock the fanny packs for the whole summer. Or some would come with tall socks. And then that became a thing that summer, okay? And so every summer there was kind of something where we become like the people we're hanging out with. And they didn't even know they were doing it. And it was like, it would spread like wildfire to 350 college students. And they all just started looking alike. One summer, my favorite when I think about this, one summer, a couple of guys came in with you get them at Walmart, I think, if you would like to start this trend at your school. But you come in with the crazy, these are cat shirts that I found because I guess that's what's trendy right now, but with the crazy large animal shirts. And so one summer I came and there were a couple guys that came in wearing the tie-dye large animals, and they make them bigger than this. Joanna and I were talking about how we each had like a bear or like a coyote, and it looks like it's coming off of the shirt, okay, when we worked at camp. But these college students would come wearing these shirts. And it was just a couple guys that came wearing these shirts. It might be one like this one, okay? They have all kinds at Walmart, so go get your own. Yeah, so they would come wearing these shirts. These are not cool, right? I don't know, maybe y'all think they're cool. But they would come, and it would be 2 or 3 college guys wearing these shirts, and they would wear them. And then by the next week, 350 college students would be wearing these shirts, okay? Because when we start hanging out with people, when we start spending time with people, we become like the people we're around, and sometimes we don't even realize it. That can be a really awesome thing, or that can be like, oh, well, we're just all wearing weird cat shirts kind of thing, okay? But one thing I want to ask you, as you look at your 5 people, knowing you're an average of those people because you're spending the most time with them, you are going to become similar. You're going to kind of lean towards them, okay? You're going to become like them without knowing. I meet with a lot of girls that will tell me, man, my life is so dramatic right now, okay? And they'll sit down and they'll start in just telling me all of that. And one of the things I ask them is, who are the people you're spending your most time with? Because if you're the 5 people you're spending your most time with, or 6 or 10 people you're spending the most time with, if they're super dramatic, then you're probably super dramatic, or you're probably living a life that is super dramatic, right? We become like the people that we are around. Proverbs 13:20. Proverbs 13:20 tells us to walk with the wise and become wise. Associate with fools and get in trouble. And in this, I love it because it's a promise and it's a warning all in the same time. Okay, the promise is, hey, hang around with people and walk with people that are wise, and that's gonna rub off on you, okay? You're gonna become wise. I'm like, sweet, that's awesome. But our warning here is walk around with fools, and what does it say? Get in trouble. Okay, I have an example of this. So I told you guys we grew up in a neighborhood that was pretty much like all old folks until I was in about 7th grade, then we moved. We moved in this awesome neighborhood that was a cul-de-sac filled with all kinds of fun kids. And so my brother and I were like loving life because we did not have to make up, imaginary friends or imaginary baseball fights. And so we are living in this neighborhood. It's great. Around Christmas time, they had lights up in our neighborhood, and like it was like a thing back then where like people for like 2 weeks would like drive around and look at all of our Christmas lights in our neighborhood. And so to entertain ourselves, you know how you just get bored sometimes? To entertain ourselves one night, all of our neighborhood friends, we decided that we would take one of those like squishy dodgeball things. You know what I'm talking about? They're about this big, they're squishy. They don't hurt if you underhand toss them, but if a football or baseball player is throwing them at you, they can leave like huge whelps or black eye. Okay, yeah, that kind of ball. So we decide, hey, it would be fun to, as cars are driving by, it would be fun to hide in one of the houses that are being built on an empty lot and to just kind of toss the balls like under the cars as they're driving by, just kind of freak them out a little bit. And so I didn't feel good about this because if you know me, I am super rules follower. I always have been my whole life. I follow all the rules. I really don't, but I try to follow all the rules, and I get really nervous when other people don't follow rules. Well, my brother, who I said, remember, he does not follow rules, and he basically does everything to extreme. He and some other guys were like, it's gonna be so fun, Trish, just do it, it's gonna be great. So I don't think I actually threw the ball that night, but I was there, okay, because I wanted to hang out with him. I didn't want to miss out. So I was like, okay, I'll just hang out. I still don't feel good about this, but I like hid in the house, like this house that was being built, and I watched and laughed, and we were dumb like junior high kids, and we threw balls at cars when they would go by. And I think most cars didn't even notice, didn't bother them. Well, it's my brother's turn to throw a ball. who my brother, like I told you guys, he's a great athlete. By this point, he's played many years of traveling baseball. My brother picks up a war ball, and the rest of us were everybody else kind of underhand tossing at the cars, aiming towards the tires. My brother picks up the ball, and he rears back, and as hard as he can, like he is in the national championship for dodgeball, he rears back and then throws it at the car. He throws it so hard and hit it perfectly, hit the passenger side window, that it broke the window of the car that was driving by. And you know those moments in life, just like a split-second moment where you know you're in trouble? And it's like we heard the crack. It kind of all happened at once, but then again, it was kind of slow-mo, where it's like you hear the crack of the windshield, you hear the screech of the tires, you see the brake lights, and we just see this car door fly open. It kind of like all happened at once, but yet it was like in slow-mo. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, we're in trouble. Like, we are in so much trouble. We just cracked a windshield. And so, the fight or flight kicks in because this man, throws his car in park. He steps out, this very large man, and he begins to run towards us because we're all frozen in the middle of the road. So I have the flight in me, apparently. I just run to the nearest house, which happens to be my neighbor's house. I fly through the front door and I run and I sit down at the kitchen table. The mom of my neighbor, this is not my house, but the mom of the neighbor just turns around and I just start, because again, rules follower, I'm like, oh no, we're in trouble. So I just start frantically trying to tell her what happened. I'm like, there's a car, we broke the windshield, we threw a ball at it. I mean, there's no telling what she thought. All of a sudden, we start hearing the doorbell ring. This man is beating on the door. And it's like, wow, we're in trouble. But I was associating with fools. And so when you associate with fools, you get in trouble, right? You guys probably have stories that you could stand up here and tell of times that you've chosen to associate with fools and you get in trouble. We were in trouble. I mean, we got grounded. We had to pay for that. I had to face the man and apologize. It was awful. So anyways, we got in trouble. But when we associate with fools, we get in trouble. So let that be, like I said, there's a promise in there and it's a warning. But my question to you is, who are you walking with? Who are you walking with and where are they going? Are they heading down the road of a fool? Are they heading down the road of wise? A lot of times we kind of hear this and we think, okay, does that mean I can only hang out with other believers? I can only hang out with Christians? It doesn't, because let me point this out to you. Jesus, when you think of Jesus, Jesus sat with sinners, but he walked with the 12. And I love that. Jesus was known as a friend of sinners. He was known as someone that sat and spent time with sinners. He sat and spent time with unbelievers. He talked with them. He had conversation with them. He spent time with them. But his intimate time, he influenced his 12 disciples. That's who he was face to face with. That's who he spent the most time with. But it didn't mean that he didn't hang out with sinners. Who we walk with determines where we go. Next thing, purpose of friendship. As we kind of think through, well, what's the purpose of friendship? What's our purpose? With friends that are believers, friends that are not believers. Purpose of friendship is to friends carry each other to Jesus. Friends carry each other to Jesus. Jesus had been teaching in Galilee. You guys that have grown up at Fellowship, y'all have probably heard this story. Jesus had been teaching in Galilee. He'd been performing miracles. People had heard about him. Okay, his character and what he had done really kind of everybody kind of heard about it. And so when Jesus got back to Capernaum, Jesus decided he was going to teach in a friend's house. Back then, the friends' houses were about 2 big rooms, okay? It was about 2 open rooms. It's not like our houses that we each have our own rooms in, but it was about 2 big rooms. And so everyone heard that Jesus was coming and they wanted to hear about Jesus. And so what they did is they packed this house out, okay? Have some of you guys been to a house have some of y'all been to football stadium. Have y'all ever been to a football stadium, like a college football game, and when the game's over, okay, say it's a really close game, so everyone stays for the game, but then everyone leaves at the same time. I want you to imagine walking out of a football game or walking out of a concert, and it's like shoulder to shoulder. You literally sometimes need to touch the person in front of you, okay? One of my friends would always say we had to walk like this so you could see everybody. But it's shoulder to shoulder. You can't fit anybody else in there. That is what this house is like. There are so many people that have come to listen to Jesus teach. And so Tons of people in this house. People are crowded in the doorway. The house is packed. There's no more room. People are on their tippy toes trying to see Jesus. They're leaning in just to try to hear him. There's people in the window watching. If you have your Bible, turn to Mark 2, 2 through 4. That's where we're going to pick up this story. Mark 2, 2 through 4. It'll be on the screen if you don't have your Bible. It says, soon the house where Jesus was staying was so packed with visitors that there was no more room, even outside the door. While Jesus was preaching God's word to them, 4 men arrived carrying a paralyzed man on a mat. They couldn't bring him to Jesus because of the crowd, so they dug a hole through the roof above his head, naturally, right? And they lowered the man on his mat right down in front of Jesus. Okay, so we talked about how we have a crowded house. There's literally standing room only, and it's not like this kind of crowded. It's like we can't fit another body in this house crowded, okay? You have probably been in those situations where it's like, I am so claustrophobic and I've got to get out of here. So it is so crowded. We have these 4 friends, and they are bringing their paralytic friend, okay? So a man that cannot walk, they decide we need to bring him to Jesus. Because you know what? These 4 men have heard about Jesus. And they said, if we can get our friend who can't walk, if we can get him to Jesus, and we can get him to experience Jesus, and we can get Jesus to see him, his life will be changed. They know that if they can just get him to the feet of Jesus, then his life will be changed. And so what they do is they pick their friend up on a mat, okay? If you imagine like a yoga mat type thing, okay? It's like a thin mat. They pick him up and they are carrying him. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried to carry a person's like dead weight. They are heavy. So they walk, literally carrying this man. They get to the house, and we see in verse 4, it says they couldn't bring him to Jesus because of the crowd. So it's so crowded. So they didn't let the obstacle not seeing Jesus, they didn't let it stop him. They could have just been like, well, sorry, you don't get to see Jesus. It says, so they dug a hole through the roof above his head. Then they lowered the man right down in front of Jesus. And I love this because they get there, they can't get the man in to see Jesus. It would have been so easy for them to just be like, well, sorry, like we brought you here, but we can't get you actually in. But we're close. No, these men are like, no, we're gonna like find a way for you to get in front of Jesus because we know if we can just get you to Jesus, it will change your life. And so what they do is usually houses back then had an outdoor staircase. And so they carry the paralytic man up the staircase, which again, I don't know how they're doing this, but they carry him up the staircase. They get him to the roof. Their roofs were different than ours. Their roofs were flat. Most people back then did not have a front yard or a backyard. They would use, instead of having a yard, they would use like their roof to hang out on. And so the roofs were flat. Their roofs were made of these tiles that were clay that would sit out in the sun and it would like bake and harden. And so their roofs were made of tiles and then like mud and different clay all meshed together to make a roof. So these men get up onto the roof and they begin to, all 4 of them, they bend down and they begin with their hands to dig and to break apart this clay. That's not an easy job, okay? They begin to work and pull apart this clay, and all the while, they're making a hole in this roof, which I have so many other questions to be like, did the people care that they made a hole in the roof? But anyways, they're making a hole in the roof, okay? And when they get a hole big enough, which it had to be pretty big to like fit their paralytic friend. I mean, I imagine the man's like laying on the mat, so it had to be a big hole. Okay, so they're working, they're digging, I'm sure they're like sweating. They get a hole big enough, and then they've got to figure out a way. You'd imagine this ceiling. They've got to figure out a way. They didn't just, I told Junior, I was like, well, they didn't just like, Jesus, heads up, and drop the man. Okay, they didn't do that. They had to like lower him down. They cared about him enough to bring him to Jesus. They weren't just gonna be like, well, best of luck, hope Jesus catches you. They like lowered him down. So they had to figure out a pulley system with like ropes or cloth or something. I have no idea, but they figure out how to slowly lower Jesus down from the roof. Okay, which can you imagine being in that room and looking up all of a sudden and seeing this man be lowered down? But it says they lowered him down right in front of Jesus. And then Mark 2 verse 5 we see where it says, seeing their faith, doesn't say seeing the man's faith, doesn't say seeing the paralytic man's faith, it says seeing their faith, seeing the friend's faith. Jesus said to the paralyzed man, my child, your sins are forgiven. Later, Jesus tells the paralytic man, he says, pick up your mat, stand up and walk home. And he heals the man. The man does just that. This man that's never been able to walk, because he met with Jesus, he found Jesus, his sins were forgiven. We know he becomes a believer, but he also is able to physically stand up and walk where he hasn't been able to do that before. Thing I love about this story, and this is a story, I grew up hearing this story as a kid, but the thing that I think as I look at this story as an adult, and I look at this story in the context of friendship, I love that these men say, hey, we are committed to you as a friend. We are so committed to you that we will do whatever it takes to bring our friends to Jesus. We're gonna do whatever it takes to bring our friends to Jesus. Because these men knew that if they could just bring their friends to the presence of Jesus, that their friend would have a life-changing experience. They said, if we can just get him to Jesus, then Jesus is gonna change his heart. Jesus is gonna heal him. He's gonna take care of him. And so true friendship is about walking with people as they walk to Jesus. And in some seasons, sometimes our friends can't walk to Jesus, so we need to be dragging them. Or sometimes we need to be carrying them, right? We need to be carrying them. Now, we cannot walk our friends to Jesus if we aren't already walking to Jesus ourselves. Because, you see, we can't give away what we don't already have. So if we're not walking to Jesus, then we're not gonna bring our friends to Jesus, right? Because remember, we influence our friends, okay? We have the ability to influence our friends. And so we can't take people to a place that we haven't gone. So if we're not going to Jesus, we can't expect to bring our friends to Jesus. As the band comes up, I wanna leave you guys with a couple questions just to think about tonight. Number one, who or what are you and your friends walking towards? Are you and your friends like the 4 friends of the paralytic man where you guys go, yeah, like me and my friends, like we're walking to Jesus and we're just pulling people along. Like we're pulling people to Jesus, and that's what we're trying to do. Sometimes we might get off course, but we're really trying. Or are you and your friends walking towards something that's only gonna temporarily satisfy you guys? So who or where are you and your friends walking towards? Next thing is who in your life needs your help and needs you to carry them to Jesus? There are people in your life at different seasons, and it might just be a season for someone, but there are people in your life that are hurting. There are people in your life that are lonely. There are people in your life that, you know what, they might just have family stuff going on right now, and it's real hard. There are people in your life that might be lost, but there are people in our life that they need us right now in this season. They need us to help carry them to Jesus. They might need someone to just sit with them. They might need someone to just listen with them. You know what? They might need someone just to go, hey, I'd love for you to come to church with me tonight. Like, I don't know if you'll like it, but I'd love for you to come. There are people in our life that they might just need us to love them while they're in the hard place. And we might not even say anything right now, but we might just go, you know what? I love you. And that's all we might need to say. There's people that are in the middle of fighting a battle, and we might need to stand with them while they're fighting that battle. My challenge to you tonight is, what are you waiting for? We all have people that I say rub shoulders with, okay? We all have people that are in our life that are lonely, they're hurting, they're walking through a season where they need us to carry them to Jesus. And so my challenge to you is, go do it. Go do it. I hope that we are a student ministry where we are known because we are the people that are going, hey, we want to just walk alongside of you as you're walking to Jesus. And we want to be there for you. I hope we are that student ministry, that we are loyal to people. We love people well. We pray with people. We sit with them when they're hurting. May we be that group of people. If you are someone tonight where you sit here and you go, you know what, like I am that person. I'm the person that's like lonely. I'm the person that feels alone. I'm the person that's hurting. I'm the one that like has family stuff going on. Man, I'm going to challenge you tonight. We want this to be a safe place for you. Some point before you leave tonight, tell somebody. Tell your friend that you came with. Tell someone in your D group. Find one of us on staff. We would love to help carry that burden for you. I told someone a couple weeks ago, man, carrying the weight of a burden, something hard, going through a hard season, carrying that alone is so hard. But when I'm able to talk to someone else and say, hey, here's what I'm struggling with, then you know what? All of a sudden, they can't fix it for me, but they're helping me shoulder that. And all of a sudden, it's not as heavy. So tonight, if you're that person, I'm gonna challenge you, before you leave, find one of us. Find someone here, find a friend you came with, or find one of us, and let us know. We want to walk with you. And for everybody else, may we be the type of friends that carry people to Jesus. Will you guys pray with me? Father, thank you. Lord, thank you for friendship.